Hello, Ecto Sage here on the Sage channel, and I just thought I'd go ahead and make it clear what No Man's Sky objective really is. What do you do in No Man's Sky? Now, this game has been advertised as a procedurally generated exploration game where you slowly make your way to the center of the universe, where there's something there to find. I haven't made it there myself, but I've heard some lackluster reviews of it, no real details. What I have done is spent about 40 hours playing this game. And because the game was advertised as a exploration game, a procedurally generated game where you explore a planet, you go ahead and find all of the animals, and I presume as many stations as you can, and name them all, and sort of put your mark on it all, and then go and catalog another world, and so on and so forth, I expected the whole game to sort of revolve around this. So I spent about 20, maybe 24 hours on my starting world. The first planet I spawned on, I spent that many hours there just going over the whole thing the best I could. The map system, the compass at the top, that's pretty much non-existent on the planet at this time. So it took me quite a while to sort of figure everything out until finally it seemed like all these little beacons, I'd go ahead and break into a room and enter the code, and all of a sudden it would be sending me back to somewhere I've been before. Of course, it wouldn't tell me that. I'd get there and find I've already been to these ruins or this little township or something, but whatever. Okay, the game's got some glitches in it. A bit odd that they didn't think that through, when of course the game's all about exploration and cataloging. I still have things to find on this planet, surely. Well, it turns out that the entire procedural generation system, as far as I can tell, was actually the second thought for this game. It was the afterthought. Now, given the main storyline is a bit lackluster, it's all via text, and it's a bit of a pain to get through, and takes quite a while because there's a lot of resource gathering to do, you'd think that maybe the story was the second thought, the afterthought. But I am about 90% sure that the truth is that the devs said, let's make a game like Journey. Let's make a game that's relatively short, where you go through this area, you have a great experience, and you read this text and you find this sort of interesting history, this sort of higher-minded exploration of what it is to be a person, to explore, and then you get to the end, and there's some great reveal, sort of like, I guess, Journey and that Abzu game apparently have. Well, they then said, I know, I want this to be in space, but instead of us having to craft these planets and try to figure out how to get this person from here to there to here, and have to make all these planets ourselves, let's make it procedurally generated. That way we can make 20 different types of legs, 20 different bodies, and then we can have the system automatically slam them all together and change the shapes and size of them a little bit, warp them a tiny bit, scaling them and stretching them or whatnot, so we'll make it sort of look like different animals, and we can do the same things for the trees. That way, we won't actually have to manually make all this. And then they figured, well, that's kind of cool, and we got it working, so let's expand it out. Let's make a whole universe with it, because it's a simple algorithm. It's not requiring too much more memory. It's just changing the numbers, which just swaps out the different body parts and stuff. We can easily just make 1 billion of these. So that's when they came up with the 18 quadrillion or whatever different systems. Thing is, when they made this change, when they went ahead and changed the game from just this simple go from here to the center of the universe, and it's going to be this interesting thing, when they expanded it out to have this whole universe, they didn't actually change the scope of the story or the gameplay. The gameplay being, it's not just click here and you'll go there. You have to gather materials, and once you gather these materials, you make fuel, and then you go farther and you get attacked by these little drones and things like that every now and again. They didn't expand on that gameplay at all. They kept the same gameplay, which would have been alright for a very linear game where you have just a few planets, maybe it takes 2 hours to get through, and they kept that within a suddenly huge world, and then advertised it in such a way that pretty much everyone seems to think this game is about exploration. But when you actually start playing it, when you spend 22 hours on a planet, think, okay, I've explored pretty much everything else, let's go to another planet in this system, and find it's pretty much exactly the same, then go to the next star system after upgrading your jump drive, and find that, yes, things are different, but all the materials, all the minerals, I was expecting them to be procedurally generated as well. Yet, here they are, the same exact minerals, the same exact crystal structures, the same models. I was expecting a lot of variety here, and I'm not getting it. I'm not finding it. I keep seeing the same exact flower giving me zinc or platinum, the same little one type of plant that can attack you. This is all stuff that would be fine if, it was a set number of planets, maybe 8 planets, and you had to do some specific thing on each one to get an upgrade before jumping to the next planet and then leaving the system, and then you do that again for maybe 3 times. 18 planets in total for the whole game. But the thing is, when you go from planet to planet in a procedurally generated game, you very quickly realize that all this generation, all these color swaps and slight model changes are only there as set dressing. That is not the gameplay. That is not the main point of this game. It's an unfortunate truth that this interesting indie game, which could have been, like Journey in a way, but a much lesser extent because it's still, this game, at the very end, is a text-based adventure game. You get all this dialogue you read through, you click through the different dialogue options, and the end of the game, that's the main gameplay aspect, is just that you're reading through a story that's vaguely interactive. And everything else they've done, everything that was marketed and thrown up there, is all just set dressing for what should have been a $15, slightly interesting 2 to 3 hour experience. That would have then said, hey, this mining is kind of cool, this resource gathering, this exploring of planets, it's kind of cool, I wish we had more. But when they throw it all out there and you realize just how shallow that world is, how it's the same exact thing on every single planet, just with a few different colors, or when it comes to those zinc platinum flowers or the crystals, they're all exactly the same. You realize that the devs, they made a mistake in marketing this. Because this isn't the game they started out with, I'm pretty sure. This is something they sort of ended up building around their original idea, and then not changing their original idea to match what they had built. Not growing the idea, not expanding on it, not adding new gameplay mechanics to fit the world that they'd expanded, or gameplay to match what they were saying. Maybe they were even trying to, but didn't succeed in time. This becomes pretty clear as well when you start looking at some other things. They clearly had planned to have multiplayer, but as development went on, as they expanded out the universe, they probably quickly realized that, well, we can't really have this Journey-esque multiplayer where people come in and out anymore, because there's a lot more cataloging, a lot more keeping track of things. And I also believe when they kept on talking about it as if it was about to be there, well, that's because behind closed doors, they were still trying. I believe a lot of the wishy-washy talk that we saw from the developers and a lot of this, well, slightly misleading stuff is because they really did think, hey, yeah, we're going to get this working by the time it goes on sale, right? We're going to get this working. This function's going to be in there. This function's going to be there, right? Yeah, it'll work. It'll work. And they kept that up till apparently the very end. When it released and they kind of had to go, yeah, no, it'll work, don't worry. Even though, as I guess streamers have proven, you can go to the same planet, you can be in the same place, but you're not going to see anybody else there. It's unfortunate. Real unfortunate that things like that happened. Again, I think that's where any of their dialogue, if you go back and look at it, look at it from the point of view that this game was supposed to be much, much smaller, a simple story where you just read some text here and there and you sort of get this idea of things. That'll make a lot of what they say and how silent they want you to be about it make more sense, because they still look at this game as mainly a story game. Because obviously if this game was a procedurally based game that's all about exploring and finding completely unique stuff that's going to be new to you, completely new structures that are just randomly thrown together in interesting ways, and planets that have massive oceans and make some sort of sense because a procedural generation uses land forms and shapes that shift and move and then locks them in place and says, that looks good enough, and puts it out there. Why wouldn't you share that? Devs still look at this as a story-driven experience. They fail to take into the scope that their game had grown to, and the fact that people then expected something to be built around this feature, which was just a feature to fill out their world for their story. It's a real shame. Real shame. They needed somebody who was better at communicating what the game was actually about, which was going to the center of the galaxy. It was not supposed to be an exploration game, very clearly. Because if it was, I don't think you'd be going and trying to collect zinc on every planet. You'd be going and trying to collect some different material every 3 planets. Something completely different that you didn't even see or know existed at all back in the last solar system. Anyway, guys and gals, that's it. I think I've gone over the basic gist of that. Who knows, maybe they'll actually make it into a fully fleshed out exploration game where you will find things and maybe even do some of that survival game building that everyone was hoping for, or at least some people seem to have been hoping for. Very odd survival aspects. A lot of very odd stuff thrown in there clearly is afterthought. Anyway, once again, thanks so much for watching, and I shall see you all next time. Ta-ta.